Hi, it's Carol Roberts again. I'm the doctor who's involved with grokking wholeness. And before we even start, I would request that you click the subscribe button because we need your help in getting the word out, and that would help us a lot. So we're not asking for money, just your interest and your following us. So my last video was about psychedelics, and I got such good response that I'm going to speak on the same subject again. So my own experience with psychedelics, as I told you last time, began in college. I was there, I was at Harvard when Timothy Leary was there, and LSD was readily available. So that was my first experience. I was probably 20. It lasted all day, like an 8-hour trip. I have no idea what kind of dosing it was, but I do remember vividly the transformative image that I experienced. So this was back in the 1960s when space travel was young, and we had orbited the world, but we hadn't gone to the moon yet. And what I found was myself disembodied outside the planet, looking down at the surface of the planet. So not only could I see the tiny ant-like humans and their vehicles swarming up and down the East Coast, mostly between Washington and Boston, because those were my stomping grounds at the time. But I could also hear their thoughts. And as I listened, I became aware that each one of them thought that what they were doing at that moment was the most important thing that could possibly be done. And they were caught up in it, and they were just possessed by that thought. And looking at them so tiny, so insignificant in the vast blackness of the universe, I found that hysterically funny. And so I laughed and laughed and laughed. And then after a while, I stopped laughing and I looked again and I thought to myself, wow, that is pathetic. That is the saddest thing I've ever seen. And I wept for just as long. And so I oscillated between weeping and laughing for quite some time, who knows how long. And that was my profound takeaway from my first psychedelic experience. So after that, I just could not take myself so seriously anymore, nor anybody else. But I found that if I tried to tell people that, they would inevitably get angry at me. So I stopped talking about it and I just enjoyed the show. So remember that when you're thinking that what you're doing is the most important thing in the universe. So going on from that, I did shamanic training with the Four Winds Society, which is a 2-year training that involves multiple weekend retreats. And for me, a couple of weeks in Peru and a lot of ritual training and a spiritual vehicle, a framework that I could utilize when I did psychedelics and later when I offered psychedelic journeys to other people. So Alberto Villoldo, you may know, has written multiple books. He's a medical anthropologist. And he left his university position in order to go and study with the Quero Indians in the high Andes in Peru. And he was with them for at least a decade, maybe 15 years, studying and learning and incorporating their practices until finally he was told by them, all right, it's time for you to go back to your people and teach them our ways because they will need to know this in the future. So Alberto came back, founded the Four Winds Society, and has been training interested people ever since. So I did that training. So I can't call myself a real shaman, but I do have a deep appreciation for the sacredness of the rituals involved. Um, so in the jungle, sorry, the sun is coming in over here and it's just very distracting. Um, in the jungle, they do a brew called ayahuasca. And ayahuasca is actually pharmacy. It's these indigenous people figured out that in order to avail themselves of the magic of the compound 2-MeO-DMT, um, they had to nullify the effects of a stomach enzyme called MAO. MAO breaks down DMT before it can get into the bloodstream. So just swallowing the leaves of the chacruna plant or any of the hundreds of other plants that contain DMT is not sufficient to get to psychedelic land. But when they brew the leaves of the chacruna with the vine of the dead, which is ayahuasca, the MAO inhibitor in the vine mixes with the DMT from the chacruna plant, and it becomes a psychedelic brew. So I told you last time about my ayahuasca experience, which actually happened here in Florida, when my intention was to help liberate my mother from her body. She was quite elderly. She was 95 at the time. She had been depressed for years, and she just wanted to leave. And I thought that was appropriate. And so the way I chose to help her was to do the journey with the intention of asking the spirits to help her out. So as I described last time, I had the hallucination, if you will, or the intimation while I was purging that I was actually giving birth. And so I gave birth to my mother into the next world, just as she had given birth to me into this one. So there was a nice kind of bookending, and she passed that very night. So that I found totally magical. So now I'm going to tell you a couple other stories from um, my practice, which part of it is allowing people who want the experience of psychedelics to have it in a safe and supervised way. So in Florida, the only legal psychedelic is an anesthetic called ketamine. The kids call it Special K, and they tend to use it in club settings, but it's not the best drug for that because it has a profound dissociative effect, meaning you lose control of your body. You lose interest, you lose connection with your body, and your spirit floats free. So I had in my practice at the time, my regular medical practice, a former New York City firefighter who had been part of the cleanup of 9/11, of the Twin Towers, when, here we go, when they had fallen and they had to go in and clean this up. So he had been traumatized, as one can imagine, by that experience. He had lost quite a few of his friends, and he carried that pain for many decades afterwards. His wife was a sweet lady who was actually too sweet because her main thing was to make sure that everyone around her was happy and taken care of. So they decided to do this journey together. And she had already labeled him the sick one. And so I went with the expectations of helping both of them because nobody can't use this kind of experience. So I administered the medicine to both of them. And right before she went under, she was still asking me if I was okay, if I had enough water, if I needed food, if I needed this or that or the other. And it was marginally too much. So I recognized that. And she went into her experience and stopped talking, as did he. And so ketamine lasts for about an hour and nothing happens. You can't really see anything. They don't want to talk. They probably can't talk. And so I was there for the ride. And then he came back first and he opened his eyes and he said right out loud, I felt my mother's love. And that was profound. He was in ecstasy. She came back doing the same thing that she had been doing when she went into it, which was trying to make sure that I was happy and comfortable. So she did that for about 10 seconds, and then all of a sudden she stopped and she said, why am I doing that? Which turned out to be a profound transformation for her. And this is what happens to people. You don't have to be sick. You don't have to be crazy. You don't have to be depressed or anxious to benefit from this. It is a profound tool of personal growth and also a profound tool of community. So, as Mark Hyman pronounced in his podcast, so I feel okay with repeating it, that there are probably at least 400 gatherings every weekend in LA alone to enjoy psychedelics in community. So I'm very, very happy about that. So those of us who are of this boomer generation and who were there for the flower children revolution are happy to see that we're still enjoying that. And we are now bringing it back into common parlance, thanks to books like How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan and many others, the Beatniks and Terence McKenna and Alan Watts and so many, so many psychedelic pioneers who paved the way for us. So I'll hold it here and we'll take it up again. Let me know what you think. Send us your comments. Hit subscribe and tune in for more to come. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you.